It's the Score North Twin Show.
Oh, man. The sports dad always knows. Sports dad always knows. We'll get into the situation with the Twins pitching staff right now going into the biggest series and biggest week of the year, because you get the Royals then right after a 4-gamer with the Guardians. And this Score North Twin Show presented in part by Nicolay Law, the exclusive personal injury law firm of Purple Daily and other Score North podcasts, such as the Score North Twin Show. Nicolay Law, led by Russell Nicolay, who's, by the way, a huge fan and supporter of the Purple, of the Twins, Minnesota sports. In fact, Nicolay Law, proud to serve the Twin Cities communities that they live in. They're just your normal everyday folks that you see around the neighborhood, the gas station, wherever it may be. They just happen to have law degrees to help you if you've been unexpectedly injured, get the compensation you deserve after the accident. So if you've been injured, get Minnesota's local award-winning injury lawyers, nicolaylaw.com, or give them a call at 1-855-NICOLAY. So Doogie is reporting on the scoop session we did, Score North YouTube channel, Minnesota Sports with Mackey and Judd, that Joe Ryan, who left his start early yesterday, is set for an MRI. So, yeah, when you talk about pitching depth at the deadline, and Judd, you were banging the table. Dex and I were kind of, like if they could just get to the playoffs, they're going to be fine with the 3 starters, maybe 4. But, well, there's no guarantees you get to the playoffs, and now you just lost Joe Ryan. So what's our panic level on the show here, boys?
I'm probably at about a DEFCON 3 at this point. I'm on the scale of 5 DEFCON levels.
One's the worst, 5's the lowest.
Yeah,
right?
DEFCON 3 is enforced readiness, above the required normal readiness. I will say the velocity wasn't so down that it was like super concerning. I fumbled my way like 2 or 3 starts ago at Joe Ryan asking about that. I just had like a bunch of word vomit come out, and he literally just replied back, "What?" And then I had to clarify what I was trying to ask him about, because his velo was actually very down that day, but his spin rates were also super up on all of his pitches, which was weird. But yesterday his velo wasn't like significantly down, which like to me is a decent sign that it's not like a huge issue. When I'm ranking arm injuries, or if I see arm injury, obviously the biggest concern is anything elbow, forearm related. I'm just going to loop those 2 together. The second biggest concern would be a shoulder issue. And then like triceps, I would put below that as well. I would imagine we're going to see an IL stint. I don't believe, unless pending this MRI results, that Joe Ryan's season is done, but I don't think we're going to see him in the rotation over the next 1 to 2 turns. But it is a significantly big deal if Joe Ryan is not part of this team's plans the rest of the way, and then obviously into the playoffs.
If you're at a DEFCON 3, I'm at a DEFCON 2.
Naturally.
I'm very, and there's a couple of reasons why. First of all, and he might have learned his lesson, and if he did, good for him. But if you guys recall a year ago, I think it was in June, Joe Ryan tried to pitch through some pain, and he didn't tell the team, which was not a good idea. And he made a few starts that were bad, and then he went to Atlanta and just got hammered, and then he finally said, well, something hurts. I'm curious if he pulled himself at the first sign of pain here, or if he's been trying to pitch through it. And your question actually reflected that his velo was down because something hurt. And then yesterday it was sort of weird, and he said, okay, I can't continue. So I guess my question is, how long has this been going on, to quote the song? And then, like, okay, let's say he spends a stint on the IL. What's it like when he comes back? So I'll go back to what I said, because, what Phil said is probably correct. If they get to the playoffs, at least a 3-game series and a 5-gamer, they're probably fine. A 7-gamer might be a problem. I don't know. It might not be. But you've got to get there. And this is an incredibly tight race. And it is very disappointing, I think, that you won the first game against the Cubs. You certainly had what appeared to be a winnable game in Game 3. And that goes back to my whole thing, win series. You don't need to win every game. And you lost that game, unfortunately. A guy that you traded for, a reliever, was absolutely abysmal. And meanwhile, Cleveland's lost 5 straight.
Yeah.
So, like, this is a way to get yourself, if you can back into the playoffs, this feels a way to back yourself out of the playoffs, potentially.
It's crazy because the way the American League is laid out, you are literally like a good weekend away, maybe a week away from being the number one seed in the American League, but you're also a bad week away from being outside the playoff window. And so it can really go any which direction. So I'm probably a DEFCON 2.5 between you guys right now, just because.
You're just on the tightrope. The
And
DEFCON
if
tightrope.
you're doing MRIs
Yeah.
in the middle of August on a pitcher's arm, it's not the best news. So, and then obviously Pablo Lopez has not been the staff ace that you hoped this year too. So you're dealing with that and hoping that he comes around. So what do they have? So Louis Varland's going to make a start in the doubleheader tomorrow.
Correct.
And then beyond that, I mean, you're kind of looking at David Festa saying, all right, are these last 3 starts for real? You were dominant in the minor leagues. Are you can you at least be a reliable 5-inning starter the rest of the way, right? Like but you're looking at Simeon Woods Richardson and David Festa and maybe like a Louis Varland who, since he gave up 11 runs in 2 1/3 on June 23rd against Toledo, just a total disaster. He's been great for the Saints over the last like month and a half, to give him credit. But you're going to need like two of the aforementioned pitchers if Joe Ryan is going to be out for a period of time to step up and do it against the Guardians and against the Royals and keep you in this thing for the month of August, right?
Yeah, I mean, Fest is basically, I think, best case scenario, a 5-and-fly guy. Like he racks up pitch counts. He has to probably execute quicker on 2 strikes. This went from just, hey, can you hold down a spot for right now to, nope, you are going to be in the rotation probably for the foreseeable future. And I know he hasn't been effective, but does this change their plans of Chris Paddock? I still think a bullpen option is the best version of Chris Paddock, but now there opens a vacancy in this rotation. Do they put Chris Paddock back in because they have to eat innings somehow to get them to the end of the season with a starting rotation? So I'm going to guess if there is a significant injury to Joe Ryan that we might see Chris Paddock be in the starting rotation again. But yes, this has gone from, Bailey Ober and Pablo are fine and you can start them in playoff games, but now it's a legit question. If you don't have Joe Ryan, this is 2019 Uber driver situation all over again if you don't have a viable third option.
Now, I will say, in defense of Louis Varland for a second here, because we've seen it with Trevor Larnach on the offensive side, where a guy will come up and you have hopes for him, and then he struggles and goes back down. Then maybe he comes up. There's like a stop-start to it. It's very rarely a linear success progression with young baseball players where a guy is crushing in the minors and then you call him up and it's all smooth sailing. Matt Wallner was unplayable for the first 2 or 3 weeks. In April, you had to send him down. Okay, he gets right with the Saints, comes back up, and now he's one of your best hitters, and he's going to be a middle-of-the-lineup guy for the playoff stretch. What is your belief that Louis Varland, who, again, on June 23rd, against the Toledo Mud Hens, 2 1/3, gave up 11 hits, 12 runs, 11 earned. He walked. Well, actually, you know what? He didn't walk anyone, so credit to him but he gave up 5 home runs in that start, and then he had some sort of just deep breath, come to Jesus meeting with himself and the organization, and he's been really good mostly in the 6 starts since then. I mean, like, Maybe he's what Wallner was to your offense. Maybe that's what could happen in the next 7 weeks or so.
Or it could be Dobnik, who was good in St. Paul. My biggest problem, and just to be clear here, I think the majority of Twins fans are going to blame the Pohlads, right? They wouldn't allow more spending, which might have been true. I don't know. But I got that note, and I will say this. If I had talked to Derek Falvey the day of the deadline, okay? And Falvey said, hey, here's the deal. We can take on a smidge of salary. Talking to Toronto about Trevor Richards, a bullpen arm. Or I was smart enough, which they weren't, to call like the Rangers about Michael Lorenzen, who was signed to a 1-year contract. And we'd have to take on and it was a reasonable contract. But we would have to inherit probably approximately about the same amount for the rest of the season. Judd, what should I do? I'd say, well, your bullpen, I don't love it, but I don't hate it. And you have no starting pitching depth. And what Varland signals to me, and this is not fair to him, I don't think, is hope. Like, hopefully he can come up and give us a good start. Okay, but you didn't give yourself any out if he fails. Like, you have no backup plan. And Dex is right to talk about Paddock, just like I brought him up on with Royce. But as you said, Phil, he hasn't been good as a starter in how long? So like, you've given yourself no room for error again with a team that deserves at least a chance.
I think on Lorenzen, because he's the name that, I mean, it wasn't like a top 20 prospect.
He's just a poster child, in my opinion, of a guy you could have brought in to add depth. I mean, take your pick.
But I think, like, let's use Lorenzen as that. He's right on that line of, okay, does he really matter for your next 2 months? What are you going to have to give up? And the answer was not very much. What does he cost? Not very much. At the time of the trade deadline, I don't think he cracks your rotation because obviously you've got Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan healthy and Bailey Ober. Right. And then Simeon Woods Richardson, who's hit some hard times the last 2 or 3 starts. But at the time of the trade deadline a week ago, you really liked the way he was pitching for 2 months. And David Festa had given you a couple good starts. And by the way, David Festa, a lot more upside swings and misses than a Michael Lorenzen. So at the deadline, I see, you know what? Like, Lorenzen wouldn't even be in the rotation, so let's go get a reliever. But once one of those guys goes down, they are so thin behind that. And even like, what Chris Paddock's come back. Well, but I've been saying this for like the whole season. Chris Paddock hasn't had an above average. Like, look at all the different metrics, whether it's ERA plus, anything, wins above replacement. Like, he is a below average starting pitcher since 2019. So, yeah, like, Judd, you were, in terms of just depth and planning, you were right. You were right a week ago.
And I never said what I said thinking, you know what, I think Joe Ryan might get hurt. I said it because Sim and Festa, I don't think it's fair to say sure things. That was my point. Like, if one of them starts to struggle, what's your bailout? Well, now it's even worse. But I mean, I was not predicting injuries. I was just saying you've got some young pitchers who deserve the grace that if they fail, they're not basically put on the mound at Yankee Stadium and it's like, hey, kid, you're going to have to pitch anyway.
You know what's crazy, too, about the division is, so if you just go by expected wins and losses, which kind of takes more of a run differential approach to how your results should be in terms of wins and losses, the Royals should be leading this division, and by leading it by about 3.5 to 4 games. Their expected wins and losses right now is 69-47. They have a 64-52 record. So theoretically, the Royals should be leading this division, and the Twins would be looking up at them by about 6.5 games. They've just been okay in 1-run games. There's a couple other random things that happen there, and their home and road splits. I don't know if
they're crazy.
Go look at them again. They're hitting like 400 as a team at Kauffman Stadium. I'm not exaggerating. It's like 400 batting average. It's nuts.
It's a little suspicious.
So this entire division, and this week, man, I mean, you got 7 games against the Guards and the Royals. This is a crucial part of the season for the Twins, and they might be without one of their best starting pitching options.
And we have to see Byron Buxton. Doogie reported that he hopped on that plane to Chicago after hitting the wall and his back kind of flared up, so we don't know.
And I'm officially now concerned about Correa. Like, I'm officially now, it's been, a month now?
He hasn't sprinted yet, according to
right. But I mean,
reporting.
Yeah. And I understand what they're trying to do, and I actually agreed with it. But as we talked about with Dukes, if they're thinking that he's like if he's like, I'm not going to come back until I'm really comfortable, like, he's going to have to play through pain. The question is, how much? Like, what's the threshold of, okay, now he can play again? Because anyone they put at shortstop now is not going to be as good as Correa at shortstop, I don't think, period. To me, the problem last year with the plantar fasciitis in the left foot was at the plate.
Yeah, he wasn't getting as much drive. And
really strong.
You could tell.
Yep.
So all of that looming going. And by the way, the Guardians aren't exactly smooth sailing into this series either. They just got swept in a doubleheader against the Diamondbacks. They've lost a handful of games in a row. Yep. 5 games in a row. So you've got all this looming and this huge series against the Guardians that you might wind up just splitting 2-2, and then everyone kind of gets out alive. But Yeah, this is the biggest series of the season, and then the Royal series is equally as big for all the reasons Declan said. By the way, like, you might think, wow, who cares about your projected record or your expected record? But it is based on run differential, and run differential over the course of 6 months tends to tell the truth. So I agree. I mean, Royce's been saying it too. The Royals might just be the best team in this division, but it hasn't manifested yet. But if they keep outscoring teams more than the Twins and the Guardians are, it tends to be predictive. So we've spent a lot of energy on the Guardians, but it's possible the Royals are also the same level of threat. They just, haven't caught these two teams in the standings. So.
Bottom line is the American League is about as wide open as it's going to be.
Yeah. And again, you could still, despite all this stuff, you could still be the number one seed in the American League, or you could miss the playoffs, depending on how it shakes out. So, okay, random twin of the week. Judd's got us covered here this week. Baseball. Presented by our new friends at Park Dental. My friends at Park Dental, because I found a new dentist, old Macadac, showing the pearly whites, big smiles after my. So a couple weeks down the road is when my first appointment is. I had heard great things about Park Dental, so I started just kind of creeping on reviews on the internet and saw a lot of great things. People that say they would never go see another dentist just talk about how amazing the staff is. People that go out of their way even to see a Park Dental dentist. Over 50 years, Park Dental has been caring for and cleaning teeth in Minnesota and western Wisconsin. Also, they've treated professional athletes from Minnesota, from some of the big time local teams dating back like the last 5 or 6 years. Schedule your checkup like I did at parkdental.com. I'm looking forward to my first experience in a couple of weeks here, and I'll let you guys know how it goes. Parkdental.com. Baseball. Okay, it's time for the random twin of the week here. It's going to be Declan versus myself. Judd has the clues here. The last handful of random twins, Marwin Gonzalez, Kenny Rogers, Butch Weiniger, Kenny Vargas, and Dustin Moore. I have 20 wins all time. Judd has 15 wins. Declan has 14 wins. Judd's going to throw out some clues. Each of us can shout out answers whenever we want. If one of us hits a third strike, the other one wins automatically. No Googling. You can Control F search to see if we've done a player before.
Are we ready?
Here we go.
All right, here we go. This random twin hails from Brawley, California. Brawley, California.
Is that Northern or Southern California?
I didn't look.
Maybe Judd can look that up for us.
I don't know.
It's middle California.
Where's Doogie? Doogie, look it up for us. Mm-hmm. He was selected in the 28th round of the 2005 draft. One reason he fell so far in the draft was he played for 4 colleges.
Whoa.
Two JUCOs, Orange Coast College and Arizona Western College, and 2 Division II schools, the University of North Alabama, and then finally Mesa State College.
Mesa State.
That's a journey.
Well-traveled young man.
From North Alabama, California to North Alabama.
Yeah.
Mesa.
Well, and then to start at the JUCOs out west, and then to go to North Alabama. All right, so next clue. This former twin made his big league debut on June the 26th, 2008 against Cleveland at the age of 25.
June 26th, 08?
Yep. Against Cleveland.
With the Twins?
No, not with the Twins. He would be selected to the All-Star game in 2013.
I'm going to Control F real quick.
Me
Do you want me
too.
to wait,
I'll take
wait or keep
Kendrys
going?
Morales.
Incorrect.
Declan, aggressive.
I like it. I like your guessness.
Aggressive.
Keep going, Phil, or did you
No,
want
we have not done the player that I
Okay.
am thinking of,
Okay.
but
This former twin, random as he can be, spent 15 years in the big leagues. On 2 occasions in those 15 seasons, he had an ERA under 2.
In 2 seasons?
In 2 seasons, his earned run average, this pitcher's earned run average, was under 2 for the entire season. Very impressive.
Ooh. Okay.
For his 15-year career, he had a 10.1 WAR. His wins above replacement were 10.1.
Okay.
His WAR with the Twins in 2 seasons with them didn't really help his cause. It was 0.4. So he did have a good WAR elsewhere.
So many options here. So many. It's very random. Very random.
The Twins were one of 8 teams for which this gentleman pitched.
Wow. '13 All-Star Game. Who the hell?
No.
Who the hell would have been in that?
He was
All-Star
around
game?
before then.
He had an ERA of 3.59 in 51 games over 2 seasons in Minnesota.
51 games, and what was his ERA?
3.59.
Was the 2013 All-Star Game his only All-Star appearance?
Yes.
Okay, then it's not this guy. He definitely made more All-Star games.
Okay. This is going to just be prepared. We're going down a path now. We've entered into the hot zone of Random Twin. 8 of his 137 career saves came with the Twins.
137.
He had 137 in 15 years, but he had quite a few saves.
But only 8 with the Twins.
But only 8 with the Twins.
Oh,
he did have
more
some
All-Star
saves.
games too.
So he was an All-Star closer, perhaps, randomly, like 1 year.
Did the All-Star Game come with the Twins
No.
as a member? No.
No.
Okay.
No.
what I
No.
thought.
He
That's what
was
I
not. He was. In fact, I will tell you this: he was on the opposite league's All-Star team in 2000.
Okay, now All-Star.
He was on 3 World Series championship teams.
Wow.
All of them the same team.
Oh. Okay.
3 World Series championship teams, all with the same franchise.
Holy
Sergio
cow.
Romo.
That is correct.
Oh, God, that's a great one. Nice job. Oh,
Sergio Romo.
Sergio Romo.
Sergio. I was thinking
God.
Red Sox. Red Sox. Nope.
I-
Giants were the only other.
I was thinking Fernando Rodney, but I was like, he played so long and definitely made a lot of All-Star games.
According to Wikipedia, Sergio made 2013 All-Star game, and that was it, which would track with his career. But he played.
Yeah.
For, but he
Good,
played
solid major league career.
Oh.
By the way, that's Declan's first win in 2
while.
months
Yeah.
Dex.
on the random
Wow.
twin of the week.
For,
Nice
you know what?
job,
we
Dex.
all go through slumps. I think I slumped for 2 months in this segment a while back. So
Dex has tied Judd with 15 career wins in the random twin.
bring it
I'm
next
at
week.
20.
Bring it
Let's
next
go,
week.
dude.
Bring it. Me and Dex. Mano a mano.
Sergio Romo.
Mano a mano next week.
Do you guys have any requests? Any, not player requests, but like era? I might not consider them.
1972.
I
72?
think you do whatever you'd like to do. I think that's the best way to go about
I'll make note that Judd wants one from 1972. I'll
Dex.
check the Twins roster and see what we can come up with there.
Yep.
Jim Cott. He was
Oh,
on the
kidding.
Twins. Was he on the Twins in 1972?
That might have been his last year. He might have joined the White Sox, and Calvin might have, and he
it. That might be a clue.
might have had their falling out, and he joined the White Sox in '73. It was definitely right around that time.
Right around there.
The
Okay.
Kitty left.
That's the Score North Twin Show here for today. Our beat podcaster, Declan, the sports dad, former Twins beat writer, Mackie. We're all just hoping that Louis Varland can figure it out here. It'll be a fun series this weekend. See you guys.